podcast. The Idlecast.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe.
Scott McDermott.
I was bit by a black widow in Hamul in my sleep.
Harrison Perkins.
Every muscle in my body is clenching right now.
And
Scott Clark.
You know, I would like to get to know a tarantula.
their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
Good morning, Vietnam!
We'll do it live.
No. We'll do it live!
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Hey there, Harrison Perkins.
Hello, Scott Clark. How are you?
I'm fine. The third member of the show, Scott McDermott, our third super friend, is not here, but for good reasons, and everything's okay. He's fine, and he's just taking care of some important family business, and we look forward to having him back on the show soon. But no worries, Scott's great, and he'll be back soon.
You're stuck with us for a little bit.
I had a boss in the radio business who had been in for a long time, and when he started, everyone was expected to talk like this. Good morning, everybody. We actually had a name for those guys. We called them Roger Radio, or we had other names for them as well that were less polite. He had been doing it for so long, he didn't even know he was doing it. So every time I saw him, and when I had two buddies, or three actually, that worked for him. Great guy, really good guy, and I liked him a lot. He was very kind to me and generous with me. I was just a young punk, and he was very patient with me. So at another station, he worked with a dear friend of mine, Scott Campbell, and he would say, "Hey there, Scott Campbell." and so anytime, and then Scott would say, "Hey there," and I won't say his name, but and then he would look at Scott like, "What are you doing?" So he didn't
Why
realize.
are you being weird?
Yeah,
After
exactly.
I was just weird.
Yeah, exactly. But he didn't know it, see, because he'd just been doing it for so long.
It's not the enthusiasm. It's when you did that first one, it's the
Inflection.
wobble quality.
It's the inflection, yeah, and because you're swallowing, it goes way back in the throat. Because there was a time when everybody was expected to talk like that. Good morning, everybody. Buckaroo Bobby with you. 7:24 in the morning. It's Winter Mustang time. So anyway, well, time I started in the business, that was verboten. It was called puking, is what it was called. And
Why is it still the stereotype then?
because those things get set. I mean, people think that disc jockeys still play records, and they haven't played records in, I don't know, decades. They don't even play cartridges anymore. It's all computerized. They don't actually play anything. It's all probably automated. I visited a complex of radio stations a few months ago, and beautiful, beautiful complex. I think it was a Saturday. There were 4 or 5 radio stations on the air. There was one person there, and he wasn't actually live on any of the stations. They were all completely automated. So that was my worst nightmare when I was getting into the business, was one day these were all going to be totally automated. At least when I was starting, somebody had to change the tapes. That was one of my first jobs, was changing tapes on an automated FM.
One of my first moments of being sort of disillusioned with the world was in elementary school, and I would call to request songs.
Yeah.
And then somebody told me, that even though you call and request it, and they say this is by request, they just have it on a schedule, and it plays when it's going to play anyway, and they just take credit for answering your request. And I was just, why is the world this way?
That's possible. It was interesting being on the inside of the radio business and some of the things that went on. Anyway, when I was working live stations, the live stations at which I worked, we took calls, we played requests, and it was really live, and we were really doing that. But now today, a lot of it, I'd say most of it is voice tracked. There's a guy in Cleveland who voice tracks. I don't know, just theoretically, he voice tracks shows on 5 or 6 stations, and he just stands in a studio and he records these liners, they're called, and then he uploads them. And that's all he does. He's not actually on the air anywhere. He's just recording stuff and uploading it, and it's being played on a computer. So that's why the radio business is swirling the toilet, and everybody's listening to podcasting. So this is it. This is the new medium. This is the medium to which people are actually listening. And
yeah, even for music, it's like, I mean, people are going to go to streaming services. I mean, either satellite radio, whatever. I'm sure there's more than the one that I know, but satellite radio or streaming services.
Yep. Spotify, YouTube.
Right. Why just wait and see what that guy puts on the radio? I find myself, I'm not really like an on-demand kind of guy, and yet I find something off about the radio these days. It just doesn't do it for me, and that makes me sound like a quintessential millennial, but maybe I am.
Except for the morning show. I mean, I think a lot of morning shows are still live and local, but after that, most of it's just voice tracked. So, and it's just dull and uninteresting. The programmers have decided to make radio dull and uninteresting because the thing of which they're afraid above all things is offending someone. So once you've made that decision that the worst possible thing you can do is offend someone, then you're going to be completely uninteresting and dull.
Which it used to be the opposite. The whole shock jock phenomenon was what radio was about for a while.
Well, yeah, sort of. A few places, a few markets, a few stations. But once the stations became owned by chains, and there's some political stuff that goes behind this. There were some changes made to broadcasting laws, actually a couple of decades ago or more, that allowed chains to buy, great numbers of stations. So stations used to be local, and they used to be owned by. So I worked for two different chains, but they were both regional chains, and the owner, probably owned 5 or 6 stations, something like that. And in fact, I happened to work at the headquarters of both of these chains, and we were live, and we were locally owned, and we were competing against the other stations, and we were doing things, in the community to try to, gain an audience and to be interesting, and at least to some degree.
I thought it was the coolest thing the first time I saw a radio station van, out at an event where, some sort of Main Street car show or something like that. I don't know. It's like, oh my gosh, the radio's here.
Yeah, I remember being able to walk by. I actually worked for this station later on, but when I was fairly young, walking by the studios of KLIN in Lincoln, and they had glass walls, and you could see into the studio. And I just thought that was awesome. Eventually, they moved from downtown, and they built a big facility, which was the fad then, Broadcast House, which it's still there, and that's where I worked, and they've got complex of 5 stations in there now. I'm not sure where I know that building really well. I spent a lot of time there. I have never been back to see how they wedged in all these stations. I have an idea what they must have done, but anyway, it's changed a lot. But yeah, meeting your favorite disc jockey. I think I met Jimmy O'Neill, who, this really dates me, hosted a TV show. I think there was a national TV show filmed in Hollywood called Shindig. But on the backside of his career, he was at KOIL in Omaha, which is a big top 40 station that I listened to as a kid. Jimmy O on the go. And I think I met him somewhere, somehow, probably through my mom. She knew a lot of people. It was through my mom that I got into radio. She did an interview. She did a lot of public service stuff for an agency, a sort of non-governmental agency. And she mentioned to this guy who became a dear friend, Don Crawley, she said, my son is interested in radio. And he said, well, tell him to come on out on as it happens, may I call Bill, on Sunday mornings. And so I did. I went out on Sunday mornings, and I helped Don pick records. It's called pulling records for this Sunday morning show that he had to do. And that's how I got started in radio.
And it's amazing how, in the previous century, you didn't have to have the degree and stuff. Like now, imagine doing that. Just like, I'm going to show up, I want to do this, without a certificate at least, if not
Well, that's still how it kind of works. You're an intern on a talk show somewhere, and you're a producer, they call you, but you're an intern really. And you do that for 8-9 months, and then you graduate from college and you go off and get a job somewhere. It's okay. I worked with a lot of the kids from what we used to call the J school, the journalism school, when I was on the air, and I had to unlearn them the stuff that they were learning, some of what they were learning in their classes. You could always tell the J school kids because they would come in with their Radio Shack reels of tape. That's how long ago this was. And that was a dead giveaway. Nobody in the business ever sent a Radio Shack reel of tape to a station. When the program director received a box that said Radio Shack, then he just tossed it in the trash because he knew, well, this person clearly doesn't have a job. If you have a job, then you have access to commercial reels. And you just wipe that reel and then you record your demo on that reel. And it comes in a certain shape and a certain size. And everybody knew that was sort of the inside code. Okay, well, this guy has a job. And now I'll listen to his demo tape. But if it came on a Radio Shack reel, you were toast. And nobody ever told those kids that they needed to go scrounge some actual commercial reels on which to record their demos, or nobody would listen to it.
Well, you heard it here first.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
the inside tip that probably doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't. If you want to get a radio job, kids, don't record your demos on Radio Shack tape and send it in, because nobody will be able to play it. They don't have the equipment anymore.
That point still stands. Don't record it on Radio Shack tape and send it in, regardless of if the reason is different.
That's right. It still won't work.
Still
I don't know how demos are even made. I helped. Well, maybe I do know. I actually was an engineer for a demo here not too long ago. And last I knew, the candidate had a good shot at that job. So I haven't heard whether he got the job, but so I suppose that the demos are sent digitally, because that's what we just bounced it to an MP3, and so I think that's what he sent them. But anyway, I don't know. I did it the way we used to do it. I cut it up more or less the way we used to do it, and we did a live show. We did a demo show, as if it were a live show. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. How are you? Everything okay?
Yeah, doing well. It's getting hot in Michigan, so there's that. The humidity's climbing up. It's the humidity more than the temperature that gets you. I'm in the countdown to I'm on vacation next week.
Okay.
So getting to step away from the grind, as they call it, although I tend to like the grind.
Yeah.
A break from deadlines is nice. I end up still reading and typing away at some project or other every time I take vacation, but it's nice not to have a deadline.
Well, I think it is really important. I mean, this is kind of a serious point. I think it's important in our world particularly, but maybe it's always been this way, to get away from work and to stop thinking about work and just to totally unplug as much as possible and, read things you wouldn't ordinarily read. And I don't mean immoral things, but light things, fluffy things, entertaining things, thrillers, spy novels, whatever, that kind of stuff.
Things you want to read.
Yeah, fun things.
Whatever. I mean, yeah. I mean, I have the book I want to read is actually rather serious, but I just haven't had time for it. In the mix of other things.
What is this?
So actually look for a review of it on the Heidel blog. I've already signed up for that. But
so you're still working.
Well, but I mean, I have a great privilege in half in jest, but also seriously, I have a great blessing in life that I really do enjoy what I do. I find it very difficult to discern like what's the line of the thing I'm doing because I want to do versus my jobs, because I like most of what I do, and it's almost what I'd pick to do. But this book is Robert Smith, The Body God Gives, a biblical response to transgender theory. So this is a book out by Lexham Press, and it's a Sydney Anglican guy, I think, who wrote it. And this is supposed to be like one of the real sort of meaty responses, not just we know it's bad and a statement to work through that, but this has been touted as a really substantive and defining response. So I'm excited to get into this.
Well, I'm looking forward to your review, but I do think people need to get away. I need to get away and unplug and just not think about work for a week or two. Otherwise, I think we just wear ourselves down. My summer project of that sort, if I can figure it out, is, just when I need to sort of decompress. I mentioned this before, maybe on Instagram. One of the things I follow is Marvel movies. And I realize I don't recognize a lot of these clips that they run. And I was talking to my daughter, and she said, well, you have to just look online, Dad, and get a list of the movies in sequence. And so recently, for example, I watched the Iron Man movies, and I realized somewhere between 2 and 3 something happened, and I don't know what happened.
Well, you're expected to keep up with not just the ones titled Iron Man, but
the other ones,
Captain America and all of that. Once you get to Endgame, I mean, the newer Spider-Man one was all right, but it kind of just tapers off.
I can't keep track of them all, so I'm going to try to find one of these lists and then watch them in sequence and see if I can figure it out.
There's a lot of them. These have been, you got to remember, these have been going for 20 years now.
Well, I think that's true. And I thought I had seen most of them, and I remembered parts of the Iron Man movies. So I know, I think I saw them, but when I watch these clips, I think, I don't know. I don't remember seeing this, but anyway, I know that they're not all of equal quality.
There's also shows on Disney Plus, Marvel shows.
I have heard this.
Yeah.
And people complain that the movies are now tied to the shows, and you have to watch the shows in order to. Yeah. I did the Mandalorian thing, and that was fun for a while.
Yeah, that seems to have less bearing on bigger things that they have cooking, though. That seems like you could watch that and it's fine. I actually did like I thought the best thing I don't have the Disney platform anymore, but I had it for a short while. And the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, I actually thought was very good and was probably one of the best things that they had put out and tied it in am I allowed to give a spoiler? It's been a while.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the big hanging threads in the Star Wars saga was always, for the bad guys, Darth whatever is a title. Yeah. Darth is a title for a bad guy.
Yeah.
For the Sith. But there was this fluke in the very first one where Obi-Wan Kenobi refers to Darth Vader just as Darth, as if it's his first name rather than Anakin Skywalker. That's the secret that comes out later. And they actually tied that up really well in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series to give a rationale, at least a precedent and situation for why he did that, to make it less weird and, just an obvious mistake, that continuity mistake.
Yeah.
So that one was worth watching. I actually did. It started slow, but by the end I enjoyed it.
I meant to mention, when I was laid up with that cold or whatever it was I had, I watched 3 seasons of Walker, Texas Ranger. So, in your honor,
it's worth it, isn't it? It's.
So I decided the characters are likable, and it's a terrible TV show, but the characters are likable, and the writing is dumb and the stories are dumb, but the characters are very likable, and it is amazing to see how athletic Chuck Norris was at 53, 54, 55. He was 53 when they started filming that. And some of the things he does, all of the things he does, and in his early 50s are things I could not do and would not do, and or wouldn't have been able to do at 53, without a doubt.
Yeah,
so that's pretty impressive.
I kind of like it because you don't have to invest.
No, that's right. Not a lot of thinking going on here.
Yeah, I like shows at the beginning because I'm very happy for a developing story, but I wish there were some shows that you didn't have to keep track and that you could just watch this episode and it's fine. And it's not laden with drama. And it's like by the end of a run, usually every series has become
Yeah,
you know,
they go too long.
They want to tie you in with some sort of drama, and I'm like, I'd love a show that didn't have drama. My life has enough drama. Get out. Like I just
if you want drama, you just have to look at your email and see what your counseling appointments are for the week.
That's why I'm like, Walker Texas Ranger is great.
Exactly.
I show up. There's Chuck Norris. He beats somebody up. Maybe he shoots him. That's the big thing. Is he going to shoot him or just kick him?
You just kick him, which is worse.
Perfect.
It is amazing how many times people are able to get kicked in the face and remain standing. Because I'm pretty sure that if Chuck Norris kicked me in the face, I would not remain standing. Because I have seen videos in real life where, you know, one person hits one other person in the face and they go down like a ton of bricks. So I'm pretty sure if Chuck Norris kicked me flush in the face, that I would go down like a ton of bricks and they would hospitalize me.
And especially Chuck Norris. Yeah.
Especially Chuck Norris.
When he was filming, what was it? Enter the Dragon with
with Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. They had to slow that down. The cameras could not
keep up with
pick up their movement because they were so quick.
I'm sure that's right because they camera speed has developed over the years. So I'm sure whenever they filmed that in the early 70s that the camera speed was actually literally technically too slow to get all that. That's why when you look at older films, the motion is so goofy. It's not that people were immobile or were actually that goofy looking. It's just that the camera speed was too slow. So they've fixed that now, and the cameras are actually, well, I'm sure it's all digital now, so it's not really an issue. But it was an issue in analog recording for a long time. That the camera speed was just so. I'm sure you're exactly right. I'm contemplating trying to watch The Office because you guys were so excited about it.
It's great. It's great. Right. I mean, one of the things is it's a comedy of manners. So the things that they do out of place are supposed to be out of place, and you're not supposed to identify.
I understand.
You're supposed to realize, people shouldn't do that.
I'm skeptical, but we'll see. All right, you ready for some email?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
All right, let me reach in here.
Well, let's read some emails, shall we?
Oh, good advice, Craig. All right, this first one, and forgive me, I'm going to try to get this name right, but it's going to be a challenge for me because I'm, as you know, listener, mentally challenged. Adedamola. I think that might be right. Adedamola. Forgive me, brother, if I butchered that. And he said, this is Adedamola, and I had a question on covenant theology. I love this because I have actually the same question, and I'm waiting for Harrison to fix me. The Westminster Larger Catechism 31, question 31, on whom the covenant of grace was made with, or with whom the covenant of grace was made, says, the covenant of grace was made with Christ as the second Adam, and in him with all the elect as his seed. I have heard, however, some theologians say that the covenant of grace was made with the elect and the covenant of redemption with Christ. What's the right way to understand this question and to answer it? Looking forward to hearing from you. And the HRA has been a great help to me. Well, thank you very much, brother. All right, Harrison, who wrote and published, what is the title? Covenant Theology, a Systematic...
Reformed Covenant Theology, a Systematic Introduction.
Okay, take it away.
So I actually pulled out that very book to think through this in advance, to remind myself what I did think in more detail. I do have about 4 pages on this question in the book, if you want something longer than what we can do here. I think a historical consideration first is that why is this not as explicit? Well, the first occurrence of the name, the Covenant of Redemption, that as a phrase or a title, occurred in 1638 at the Scottish General Assembly. And it was David Dixon who was giving a speech against Arminianism and appealed to this doctrine as a construct to that end. And so given that the assembly was beginning its work, 1642, not that long after that, and the longer time it took for communication to occur across distances 4 centuries ago. I think that one of the things you're seeing is that language hadn't codified and solidified just yet. And so there was probably some hesitation about just enshrining an exact formulation in the Westminster Standards. But you see them hinting at this kind of construct for the covenant of redemption. And so, I mean, I do think there are seeds of this doctrine in the confession itself. So, Westminster Confession 8:1 has a kind of signal about the Son being appointed as mediator in eternity. The Savoy Declaration, which was kind of a Congregationalist revision of the Westminster Standards, explicitly includes mention of the covenant between Father and Son. And so that's kind of a historical framing of the issue. And then when it comes to Westminster Larger 31 itself, how do we understand the issue of the covenant of grace was made with Christ and the elect in him, or with the elect, as he has apparently heard us say at the HRA? I think that Patrick Gillespie is helpful on this point. And he highlights, so his book is The Ark of the Covenant Opened. And he kind of goes at this in depth for a while. And he argues that God can't covenant with sinners apart from Christ. And that's one of his fundamental and that seems exactly right to me. How could there be a covenant of grace with us as the elect if Christ were not, included in some form or fashion? And so it has to be. And so his quote here is, Christ stands jointly with the elect. And I think that far from undermining the covenant of redemption's real distinction from the covenant of grace, Gillespie writes, the covenant made with us did spring out of that covenant made with Christ, referring to the covenant of redemption. And so in this respect, the covenant of grace includes Christ in some sense, namely as our mediator in the covenant of grace. And precisely because God can't covenant directly with sinners and receive us for blessing. And so Christ was, as Gillespie would designate it, the chief party, with all of his blessings coming through him to believers in the covenant of grace. Gerhardus Voss seems to take up a similar line too. So he says that the covenant of grace was established with the Son, not as Logos apart from his incarnation, but as the Son to become incarnate. So that's the category that perhaps we've talked about on here before, incarnandus.
Yes.
To the Son, not as Son as such, but Son pre-incarnate, but with a view to his role as mediator. And so Voss invokes that to ground the covenant of grace in a relationship with the Son. And so he seems on the same page with Gillespie. He says the counsel of peace is the sure foundation of the covenant of grace, and also refers to Christ as the chief party, because the first is between God, the covenant of redemption is between God and the surety, and the second is between the triune God and the sinner in the surety.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really helpful. And so there is this connection of, well, how can there be a covenant of grace without Christ being in view? And I think that is the best way to understand this. Yes, there is a distinct covenant of redemption as I understand it, biblically speaking, and as part of our tradition, it's a good, solid premise. But, we can't leave Christ out of the picture. One of the other things to throw in here is probably that there was debate over this point. Namely, we see this in the Dutch tradition more, an emphasis on, rather than a distinct covenant of redemption and covenant of grace, some of their theologians, they're ours too, but the distinctively Dutch tradition has some who want to emphasize that there aren't distinct covenants, covenant of redemption and covenant of grace, but the covenant of grace has an eternal and a historical pull, as they call it. Mm-hmm. And so I have wondered if this is aiming to leave room for both. I mean, some might articulate that the Westminster Standards actually endorse that in 8.1 and Westminster Larger 31. That's the view that they have in mind to promote, is that it's not two distinct covenants, but one covenant of grace with the eternal pull having to do with the triune God's quote unquote agreement.
Yeah, the covenant of redemption.
And then the historical execution of that being the historical pull of the covenant of grace. So I think there's at least room left for both.
I wonder often, because the premise of the question is that there's this view where the covenant is made with Christ, and then there's this view where the covenant is made with us. And I don't know if you were implying this, but I wonder if the premise of the question is entirely right. That, in fact, as you were, I think, suggesting, as the history of covenant theology developed, beginning in the 1530s, when covenant theology is mainly used to show the coherence of the history of redemption against the Anabaptists, and then you begin in the early 60s to get people formulating, Ursinus and others, Olivianus a little bit, formulating what becomes the covenant of works. And then I see, for example, in Olivianus, as early as 1567, a pretty clear indication of what will become the covenant of redemption, the Pactum Salutis, in firm foundation. He starts with what we would later call the covenant of redemption between the Father and the Son from all eternity. So, and yet we don't have the terminology. So there is development, and as you say, you get to Gillespie, and you mentioned a couple of others. Patrick Gillespie.
Voss was the other one that I was quoting.
No, I was thinking of the 17th century guys. You mentioned somebody else.
Oh, Dixon, David Dixon.
Yeah, David Dixon. So you get to these early, developments in the first half of the 17th century, where we begin to have, this vocabulary. So that by the 30s and 40s now, we have the language of Pactum Salutis, or covenant of redemption. And we have, the Foedus Operum, or the covenant of works, and the Foedus Gratiae, the covenant of grace. And so now you have, by 1650, all of these categories and a more fully developed way of talking about these things. So the covenant of grace is with us, but was it always implicitly in Christ, right? That's what I wonder. And that's why I've said to myself, I should really work on this. And then I think, I don't know, is this really even a thing? I know people think it's a thing, but I'm not sure. I mean, if you ask the guys, here's what I'm getting at. If you ask the guys in the 16th century, for example, Olivianus in 1567, are believers in Christ from all eternity? And he would say yes, right? In view of this covenant he talks about between the Father and the Son, in which case, right, the covenant of grace is in that sense with Christ and with us in him. And so it's just a question of whether you say everything all the time at once, or you focus on this aspect or that. For example, there's been some discussion about whether the covenant of redemption is a covenant of works or a covenant of grace. And I say, well, it's both. It's a covenant of works for the Son, and it's a covenant of grace for us. Why are we arguing about this?
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's one of those kinds of things where it's there, it's just not all spelled out in the earlier periods.
I think that's right. And it's one of those things of, are there debates surrounding this? Yes. Do they really? I mean, this is important to some people. It's a niche question, and it's important to them for some reason. I'm not sure that I quite understand the reasons, the emphasis on keeping hold of that, just one covenant of grace with the eternal and historical pole coming out of the Dutch. Bavinck re-articulates that, essentially.
Oh, interesting.
And so maybe that drives some of this. But
that's a really good point. I need to read more Bavinck. I mean, I read Bavinck occasionally. I sort of use him as a resource. Mainly, I have it in hard copy, but mainly when I see Bavinck, it's on my screen through Logos.
Oh, right.
While you were talking, I was trying to get the electronic version of Reformed Covenant Theology, a systematic introduction by Harrison Perkins, my dear friend and podcast co-host, and I couldn't get Logos to let me do it. They said they wanted payment information, and yet there on the screen was the payment information, so I don't know. Anyway, I was slightly distracted because I thought I had it. I was just going to load up logos and load up Perkins and follow along as you were looking at that, and then it didn't cooperate.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's not your fault.
I don't think that this has to be a debate. That's the thing. I don't think that this meant to just weigh in with the pointy end of settling a debate. Are there questions that surround this, and were they probably trying to be a little bit aloof from landing hard? I think that that's very possible. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, how could we consider God's covenant with us as sinners apart from Christ?
Well, that's right. I mean, I guess I could see somebody hesitating to say that the covenant of grace was made with Christ. You have to explain, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Because obviously he's not in need of grace, right? At least not in that way. So that gets us into another topic altogether. I could see why that might make somebody hesitate. We are in need of being in a covenant of grace. He isn't, but we're not talking about quite the same things in the same way.
But he's the head.
Yes.
That's the issue, and that's clear. I mean, there is the specific qualifier there. In the Catechism, the covenant of grace was made with Christ as the second Adam.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good point. Thank you.
Namely, made with him in whatever respect that you may say this.
Yeah.
It's made with him as the one who was going to furnish the perfect obedience to earn everlasting blessing for those who are in him, namely the elect as his seed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I appreciate that very much. I have hesitated sometimes too when people talk about Christ as elect, and I know what they mean by that. And I'm not saying it's not true, because again, there's the Pactum Salutis. But at the same time, I understand why, at least initially, rhetorically, you think, what does that mean? Why are we saying that? So anyway, it's one of those things that you just have to be thought through and understood properly.
Yeah, I can flinch at that too. I remember reading, one of the earlier books I read on election was Robert Peterson.
Yeah.
Election Free Will, which I remember being very helpful, but that threw me for a loop the first time.
And I
wouldn't have thought that that's where this was going.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a thing, again, on which I haven't done a lot of work. Mainly when I've seen that, it's been in the context of Bardians writing about covenant theology. But I think it is in the tradition outside of Bart. So that's just something to which I haven't given sufficient attention. I appreciate Peterson's work. I have read things over the years and thought, oh, that was really good. That's very solid. So, yeah, I'm sure he's not steering you wrong. All right. Are you ready to move on?
Yeah.
Call or text now. 760-618-1563.
You got some letters.
Thank you, Vic. All right. This one's, I think, let's see. This one is from Anonymous. And hey, look who's here.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. We have a guest star
Come here, little buddy.
on the episode.
See your Uncle Scott?
There he is. Hey, look at him.
Can you say hi?
Hi, how are you?
Can you tell him what you were doing just this morning? Church, yeah.
Oh, very good. It was this vacation Bible school?
Yeah, where did you go at church?
That too.
Yeah, did you go to Bible school?
That too.
I don't know what that one is. You've got marker all over you. I can see that. Oh, who do you have? Can you show him who you have? Yeah, it's Mr. Freeze.
Oh, nice. Very good.
What did you get yesterday? The car? Yeah, what kind of car?
Papi.
Batmobile, that's right.
Oh, nice. That's one of my favorite cars of all time, the Batmobile. That's a great car.
Yeah.
I think I have seen the Batmobile. It's in the Peterson Auto Museum in Los Angeles. So you tell Daddy, let's go to L.A. and let's go see the Batmobile.
Oh, how does that sound? That sounds good.
The real Batmobile.
This one was a Lego Batmobile. We built it together last night.
Oh, nice.
Was it nice to see your Uncle Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you,
buddy. Do you want to
buddy.
go back to Mommy now so Dad can record his podcast?
No.
Hey, score one for Daddy. That's great.
Would you do it even though you don't want to do it?
We're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I need a little bit more time. Can you go back up to Mommy? Thanks. Bye.
He's such a cute boy. What a handsome young man.
We're very thankful.
That's
for him.
great. God bless you. He's wonderful. That's a cameo. All right. Hello, Dr. Clark. I have been warmly embracing Reformed piety and practice over the last 2 years or so, due in large part to the Heidel blog and the Heidelcast. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for leading us to a deeper understanding of our God and Savior. It was almost exactly 2 years ago that I moved to a new city and joined a local PCA church merely because it was the only Calvinistic church nearby. At the time, I was a Calvinistic Credo Baptist, yet open to the idea of paedobaptism. Upon studying, I become fully convinced of covenant baptism and covenant theology. But my study has also led to a host of other Reformed doctrines becoming convictions for me, including the regulative principle of worship. My PCA church offers only a Sunday morning service. That's it. No Sunday school, no prayer services, no Sunday evening services, and nothing midweek. I am recently married and have been very uncomfortable with the lack of available instruction. And while we do joyfully daily family worship in my home with prayer, Bible reading, and catechism, am I wrong to be, disturbed with the lack of resources? Given that you do not know any of the details beyond what is in this text, which he sent to 760-618-1563, does this sound bizarre, or is this normal? Is this grounds to seek another Reformed church who seeks to nourish her people? Oh, there we go. Practical question. We're talking about practice on the Heidelcast.
We're talking about practice.
What do you do when people become Reformed and then they go to a church that doesn't seem to want to be as Reformed as maybe we would like?
My first question is, have you talked to your session about this? I mean, even the way that landed there, that doesn't seem to want to be as Reformed. Maybe they do and just have not had the capacity and manpower and opportunity to do these things. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I don't want to assume, and they may have had reason for taking this approach. Is it a newer church? Is this a church plant that's 2 years old and they're still gathering steam? Is their pastor bivocational?
Yeah. What are the circumstances?
Yeah, there's a lot here that I don't just want to say, man, they must be awful.
Yeah, that's right. You could read this and put this congregation in the worst possible light and indict them, and without knowing anything, without knowing the history, the background, the circumstances, the limitations, all these things that need to be discovered before you can really, give a thorough answer.
Yeah, I mean, that closing question, is this grounds to seek another Reformed church who seeks to nourish her people? I kind of want to say, why don't we put some ice on that one? Because that comes in hot. Yeah. And, if you have asked this question of your officers, I see other Reformed churches having not only morning worship, but Sunday school, evening worship, midweek, opportunities to gather. If you've asked them those questions and they say, we don't want to nourish our people. Okay, well.
Yeah, that's right. Or they might not confess to not wanting to nourish the people, but they might answer in such a way that gives you the indication. The inference is, we're satisfied with the status quo. We're not interested in any sort of reformation or any augmenting of what we're doing. And I mean, Sunday school is, let's be plain about this, it's can be a beneficial and useful thing, but that's not a divine institution.
Right.
The evening service is arguably a divine institution, right? That's the due use of ordinary means. And a prayer service is a fine thing, but that's not a divine institution. So I would prioritize these things. I would not necessarily, were I in this writer's shoes, I wouldn't go for the whole enchilada necessarily. I would want to start with an evening service or a second service even. You don't even have to locate it in a particular time of day, just a second service. Let's say all things being equal, that the minister is not incapacitated, his wife isn't, dying of cancer or something, whatever might be limiting the church, there might be, real limitations. Maybe they have a problem with the building. They don't own the building. Who knows? Out here, that's an issue. Having an evening service can be a real issue in metropolitan areas, urban areas, suburban areas, and out here in California, it can be very difficult. A lot of our churches are commuter churches, so people drive. Sometimes, you can only go 10 miles, but it could be a 30 or 40 minute drive because of the traffic. And so They'll have a morning service, and then they'll have a lunch, and then they'll have a second service. So strictly speaking, it's not an evening service, but it is a second service. And then because of the time crunch, the second service might have to serve as sort of Sunday school because they only have access to a building for so long. So who knows what all the circumstances are.
So, I want to say to our brother here first, I appreciate your desire for the means of grace and for, supplemental nourishment on top of that.
Yeah, amen.
I commend that. I also want to give kind of a conditional, because I don't know. If you haven't asked these questions, I want to give you a slight rebuff. Don't assume the worst of your officers before you've asked these questions. They may be struggling with the same thing you are.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, and maybe he has asked.
But don't show up and impute that they're idiots from the outset.
Yeah.
That doesn't help. We have an evening service at our congregation. Predates me. Predates me. When I came, we had an evening service going, but it started because somebody asked for it.
Well, that's right. So if they don't have one and they maybe never had one and it's not part of their tradition, asking could be really beneficial. I think as a pastor, if somebody said to me, could we have an evening service? That would be a powerful inducement to me to have one. Now, again, who knows what all the circumstances are. When I was in Kansas City, much to my shame, and I've talked about this before, because my preaching was defective in ways that I couldn't understand or diagnose back then. I knew there was something wrong with my preaching, and I couldn't fix it. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't have the tools to fix it, and nobody else seemed to at the time either. The people seemed to be reasonably satisfied, but I knew there was something wrong. And so I said, listen, can we do an evening Bible study instead of an evening service? I thought maybe I would do less damage. And that Bible study was beneficial, and I was certainly willing to do something on Sunday evening. I regret not, in a sense, moving from a preaching service, which we would properly consider due use of the ordinary means, to a Bible study. But if somebody had said, and I did actually, there were people who showed up. They weren't part of the congregation, but they did show up and say, we're shocked that you're not having an evening service. You're having a Bible study. It's not the same thing. And they had a point. They were right, but they didn't help me fix my preaching. And it wouldn't be for some years until I heard Mike Horton explain the distinction between law and gospel and connect that to preaching that I understood what the problem was. And anyway, so all that to say that, who knows what's going on, and maybe asking is a good thing, or certainly asking is a good thing, and asking with patience and grace, and I'm sure you will, and hearing them out.
Yeah, practically, there's ways that you can prime the pump.
Yeah.
Some emails I get, the matter right before us, that has come to me, if I stop for a second and think about it, I'm like, actually, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I wish I'd thought of this. It's hard to see that good idea because it starts, hey, idiot, why haven't you ever?
Yeah, that's right. Rhetoric matters, rhetoric is important, and being gracious and being kind and being patient, we need to talk to people, and especially in email.
Right.
If it's of any sensitivity now, I try not to do it by email or by text, because written communication is subject to, as we know, as writers, significant misunderstanding. That happens all the time.
So here's the framing, right? Rather than, hey, why don't we, or why can't you do this for me? Pastor, I would be greatly helped.
Yeah.
If I got to hear God's word in the way that you teach it more frequently. What are your thoughts about supplementing morning worship with evening worship and or Sunday school and midweek?
And what can I do to help make that possible?
Yeah. And how can I encourage you so that you would have bandwidth, capacity, motivation for this? Get behind the guy. Most of the time, if you get behind your pastor, he will do what it takes for you.
Yeah.
If he feels defeated from the outset, it's harder for him to get there.
Yeah.
But if he thinks you're behind him, he's probably going to pull, as much as he knows how for a good thing.
And it's possible too that the minister has raised this with the session, and the session has said, my family isn't interested, we can't come, or we won't come, or we've got this, or we've got that. There's just so many variables that could be going into this that that need to be investigated. So and we don't know what the correspondent has done or tried.
Right.
So let's deal with maybe the worst case scenario. Let's say that our correspondent has approached the pastor and or the session in exactly the right way, and graciously, charitably, patiently queried them about, well, this would be great. I would love to see a second service, let's say. We'll start there. And, what can I do? And what has to happen for this to take place? And the session and or the pastor has said, we've considered that, and we just don't think that would be edifying for our congregation. We're not interested in doing that. And we're not interested in any of these other supplementary things, Sunday school or a midweek prayer service or anything like that. We like things the way they are. What does a person do in that case where this is the way the church has always done things and they're happy with that and they're not interested in changing? Those circumstances also exist, right? I mean, how many times have you and I heard people say, well, it's always been this way?
Yeah.
My two favorite phrases in the life of the church: we've always done it that way, and it's good enough. Those are two phrases that, raise the blood pressure a few points and make the temples start to throb.
Mine is, wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
That one gets me. I've developed a line for it. Wouldn't it be nice is a great Beach Boys song. It's a terrible argument for what we should do.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, that's right. Wouldn't it be nice? Or, wouldn't it be cool if we did X? That is why we have the regulative principle. Because somebody said, wouldn't it be cool if we made a golden calf? That would be awesome, right?
Right.
Let's put a bull, let's put a golden bull at, a couple of places in Israel. And that way people don't have to travel so far or whatever. That the Lord takes a dim view of those things.
Worst case scenario. So, one of the questions is this grounds to look for another? Personally, and people disagree, and I'm just stating my position. Personally, I think we should be very slow to move on. I mean, if you move for a job, okay, like if you relocate, I understand. You got to find a different church. Okay, I get that. Bar that, the relocating, I think that there's still a spectrum of good to bad reasons. We should not enjoy switching churches.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be eager just to go to, well, that church is a little bit better than my church, so I'm switching over to it just because, it's doing the better thing. If there's serious problems at your church, okay, that's one thing. If it's slipping into heresy, that sort of thing, okay, then the grade of, well, bad problem to better, and doing solid reformed things, okay, I get that one. But if it's like, my pastor preaches the gospel, our elders take care of us spiritually, we look after each other, but that church is a little bit more excited. The preacher's a little bit better over there, and the music is slicker. Yeah, I kind of think you should stay where you are. Yeah. Personal opinion.
We should be slow.
So I think we should be slow and measured before we leave.
Yeah. I mean, because there are Christians out there whose church life looks like they're on a trampoline, right? They're just constantly bouncing from one place to another. And that's not healthy. That's not good for the church. It's not good for you, not good for your family, not good for your spiritual development. If there was an option in a town, which in some places there are, and a lot of places there aren't, right? So geography is a reality, and the relative paucity of Reformed churches is a reality. But let's say you have another congregation in town where after due deliberation and prayerful consideration and discussion with the session, there's just a fundamental disagreement over a matter of principle, for example, the due use of ordinary means, then I think you have liberty. I don't think you would disagree with this, but after patiently inquiring, you have liberty to, as we used to say in the radio business, go across the street to another congregation with which you have fraternal relations, or I would hope it would be a Reformed confessing church, an APARC church.
Yeah, if you identify problems, then okay, I start to become sympathetic. They don't like it because it's extra stuff for them to do. And we could do it, but we don't want to do it.
And this happens, right? I mean, there are ministers who are happy to be paid to preach one sermon. And if there and there are guys out there, it does exist, where this is what the minister's willing to do. I know a guy, I won't say his name, but he's well known, who not in the URCs, but I knew him, and he was very honest. He said, "Look, I have 3 years of sermons." Right? He basically had sermons based on the Heidelberg Catechism. He had sermons on the Lord's Prayer, the 10 Commandments, and then the first part of the Catechism, and that's what he had. And he preached those sermons wherever he was, and he would go through those sermons. And he said, "These are the sermons I have, and if this is what you want, then you call me." And if they were happy with it, he would do them again. Right? Now he was there for 6 years. And so he was very, forthright about what he was doing, but that's what he would do. And he preached those sermons many times. They were very polished, and he was good at preaching those sermons. I mean, I wouldn't do that. I've always struggled in a sense ethically. I mean, he was very honest, and so there wasn't any duplicity involved. And it's a way. I mean, there are. I have had the sense traditions where that's actually how things are done, and it's expected. So. Maybe it's just a cultural thing, but I am pretty personally committed to, lectio continua, serial preaching through texts. But maybe that's not for everyone. So I don't know if this is the deal that this minister's made, potentially with the session, and they're happy with it, then it is what it is, and you have a decision to make, I guess.
Maybe to strike the middle ground too, if it's the case that this is what they're able, not
for whatever
reasons that you disagree with. This is what they're able. I mean, right? It's like maybe they are renting a building. I don't know, and it's like this is the only time they have.
It doesn't seem so from what the correspondent says, but yeah.
And I guess also to be fair, I'm thinking through this. Yes, in light of the specific question, but also trying to help everybody, not just the one person.
How do you deal with issues in your church more broadly?
And so in our area. I don't know all the reasons, but there are other OPC congregations that are near-ish to us.
Yeah.
And we are the only one that has an evening service. And there are a couple of other Reformed congregations that occasionally don't have evening worship. And actually, we get a fair number of people who come from other places in the evening. The ones whom I know, I've talked to their pastor, and I said, "You okay with this?" Like
I'm not sheep stealing.
We're encouraged that they're there. Happy to provide this. I'm not going to answer a lot of pastoral questions. I'm going to send them to you. But if you're happy with this, I'm happy for them to come. And invariably, they've yes, of course. And actually, if you want to answer some of those pastoral questions, please.
I have my hands full. So if you want to deal with some of these things, go for it.
I mean, that's one thing is if there's good reasons that, you still sympathize with, you've satisfied yourself now. I understand why my church is doing what it does. I'd like more. Well, okay, there are these ways that, is my pastor fine if I, go listen to a sermon at a different Reformed church in the evening? That doesn't mean leaving and switching. It means you go hear a sermon.
Yeah, which is also a possibility.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by Heidelberg Reformation Association.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.